1, 2, 3, 4.
This is Alan White, longtime legendary drummer for the progressive rock band Yes. Before his historic career with Yes, Alan played in many bands, but as a 20-year-old, the stars were aligned and he was asked by both John Lennon and then George Harrison to play on some of the biggest records in rock history, including Imagine and All Things Must Pass. I want to repeat that right here. Alan was the drummer on the records Imagine and All Things Must Pass. And it all started with a last-minute invite to play a concert in Toronto. Further along, Alan also played with Ginger Baker, Steve Winwood, and Joe Cocker, and that's just scratching the surface. But it was actually at a Joe Cocker show where Yes bassist Chris Squire evidently saw Alan play and approached him soon after. To squeeze all of Alan's accomplishments into one quick interview would be impossible, and I'd be doing him and his fans a disservice, as I am not a biographer, rock author, or archiver of Yes memorabilia or chronology. I'm just a drummer, guitarist, songwriter, shedding a little light onto an underrated master. My focus for this interview was quite narrow, and I was extra careful with his time, as I will explain later. So I apologize for this not being as detailed of his life story and showering him with the parade of intricate technical questions from his early Yes works throughout the 70s, 90s, and up to the present. I was an 80s kid, and I taught myself the drums, guitar, bass, keys, and audio production, basically off of the records 90125 and Big Generator. In this chat, I will focus on these two records specifically, and will touch a little on the records Drama and Union. Did you know Alan wrote the keyboard part for Changes? That's pretty cool. Speaking of his piano playing and arrangement skills, I did want to mention briefly a really cool project Alan had going on a few years back, featuring himself, Tony Levin, and David Torn. Basically, Alan went into London Bridge Studios in the Seattle area and laid down several drum grooves he had stored away for years. All the tracks have different meters, tempos, and plenty of tricks with the patented Alan White swing. These tracks were then sent across the world to Tony, and then to David to finish up. The result was a phenomenal representation of what three masters can do out of thin air. It's full of sonically ear-melting atmosphere, razor-sharp precision, and unmatched creativity. Go find it if you haven't heard it yet. The record is Levin, Torn, White, no warning lights. A quick story first. I'm a sports nut. I used to like to watch my sports in dark Northwest dive bars and not be bothered, so I could concentrate. One October night, a couple years back, somewhere in the dark, rainy forest near my house, I was at said dive bar watching the World Series by myself, as usual. Suddenly, I hear a polite, scratchy voice with an accent approach me saying, "Hey mate, would you mind moving over to the bar stool? I've got some friends coming in, and you're only by yourself at a big table." My usual reaction at this type of request would be, of course, something like, "Fuck the hell off." But then I looked up, and I saw who it was. No one else in the bar knew who it was, though. He was wearing a baseball hat, a big coat, and had plenty of face stubble. It was one of my biggest drum heroes, Alan White. Of course, I responded with, "Yeah, no problem at all," and I proceeded to find my stool at the bar to watch the game. Some time passed, and he and his friends were nice enough to eventually bring me over to join them at their table and watch the rest of the game. I reminded him that he was once one of the judges years ago when I was in the Guitar Center Western semifinal drum-offs in Seattle. He said, "Well, mate, I probably gave you high marks." Haha. I doubt it, but that was a nice thing for him to say. We took some pictures upon leaving and said our goodbyes, but that was a nice surprise. Now fast forward a little bit to last summer. Alan agreed to come on with me for this channel, and we had a great chat. The only thing is, it turned out I had the dreaded technical difficulties. My only interview on the channel that didn't record properly. There is no way I would ask him to do it over again, asking the same questions he's probably answered a million times for decades. So I just pushed down the doom and pushed forward. But that's not really how I work. I practiced patience for months and waited for what I felt was the right time. So just recently, I took a chance and explained my idiocy, and he actually agreed to do it again. So I switched up my question format just a little bit as to not be so broad. I think I should actually call this channel Narrow Focus from now on. So yes, I do wish I had my first interview back because it was a bit more streamlined. But what can you do, right? A lot of 80s yes, a little Beatles, and all gratitude towards my neighborhood friend and hero, Alan White. Peace.
Hello.
Hi. There you
How
are.
are you? Can you see me?
I can, you're perfect. Last time I tried to do it in the yard with the chickens, and they just screwed everything up.
Oh, I see.
Can you hear me okay?
All right.
You can hear me okay?
Is that your studio?
Yeah. This is where I teach. I have a little school out here. Well, I was with School of Rock when you stopped by, and I started my own thing. So I got a bunch of drum kits in here, and
I
little
see.
kids,
Yeah.
piano, guitar, whatnot. I just wanted to say this right off the bat. You're a totally genuine dude, and you've been very patient with me with the technical stuff. I won't go into the whole story, but yeah, I just really thank you for putting up with me and finally chatting again. You're a sweet dude, and I really appreciate it. And one of my biggest heroes, I've been interviewing since my accident. Just A-listers, and you're like at the top. So it's really heavy for me, this conversation, but I'll try to get through it.
Okay.
I was just saying my focus is very narrow. What I want to talk to you about, it's more the 80s records, and I had to work my way back into your amazing career because I was an MTV kid, and once I fell in love with your playing, your style, I had to dive into the earlier stuff. So I apologize for that I don't know that right off the bat, from the day when you were in the band, yes, and all the details of all the playing. I had to re-educate myself once I loved the 80s stuff. I had to go backwards. So that's kind of where my focus is, if you don't mind. So I was a self-taught guy. I loved the Beatles, U2, Louis Prima, Beach Boys. But then in the 80s, I got into the King Crimson colored records, and I got into 90125 and Big Generator, and I started try to develop my skills more. And I heard you play, and there was this big 80s drum gated sound, but there was also this technique that was new to me, and I was trying to learn off those records. And I knew there was more to be had, Rush and stuff like that. Your technique, to me, was not predictable. I hear a pop song, I hear a strong hook in 90125 and Big Generator, and most drummers can play it a certain way, but you played it with a certain swing and a certain creativity. Did that come from a jazz background, or did that just come from improv and your soul, or how did that happen? What's your feel?
Well, kind of. I've always been adventurous in trying to find new ways of doing things and adapting different styles to different pieces of music. But yes, they were a very adventurous band. And in the 80s, some of those songs on 90125 and Big Generator and albums like that are very basic. It's just we tread them in a different way and added elements of complex signatures within the normality of the music. So, Trevor Redmond and myself, we spent a lot of time getting drum sounds and in the studio, and that was the kind of secret because the drum sound in the studio, and when you hear it, and it's not treated like it is on the record, coming back at you. So we had elements of that in the foldback. It inspired certain ways to play things.
Hmm.
Um, but it was an exciting period for developing new ideas and using things from the past and within my style.
You found a way to take radio hits and fit um, these progressive mathy fills in and made it edible for a mass audience, which is really cool because at the time, there's this pop stuff, whatever, Madonna and whatever was like exploding across MTV, and then there's this stuff that just grabs my ears if you're trying to learn an instrument. And you're like, how did they do that? And first they grabbed me with this strong hook, and like you say, a lot of the stuff is basic, but it was really your swing and that's what I think of your style. I don't know how you would describe your style, but if
Well, when you can get people dancing in 5/4 and 7/4, that's when you know you're winning. Yeah,
yeah, and you
that
get the
kind
hands
of
in the
thing.
air. Uh,
I mean, that's part of the success of that album, I think, is because it's got complex time signatures in here and there, but you can still tap your foot to it.
yeah, absolutely, and sing along to it, and the harmonies and everything was layered. And speaking of that production, can I ask, with Trevor Horn being involved as a singer with the previous album, were you guys already friends? Did you seek him out as a lead singer for Drama? How did that work?
Well, I met Trevor before, but really, drama was the beginning of a more solid relationship. Let's put it that way.
Okay. And then the transition from him as bandmate into producer, was that comfortable? How did that work? Did you trust him as a
It
producer?
was pretty natural, really.
Yeah.
Nobody worked too hard at it. Trevor and Jeff, who were the Buggles at the time,
Yeah.
they were rehearsing next door and they kept walking past. We were their favorite band, so they kept poking their heads in saying hello.
Mm.
And then, one day Trevor and Jeff came in, they said, "We've written a song for you." So we tried it out, and within a couple of days, their equipment was in our room, and that's how that started.
Trevor Horn is. I've also studied audio engineering, and I like to produce bands locally around Seattle and stuff like that. He seems like the sounds that come out of the speakers are so very specific with everything in its perfect place. Was he somewhat of a perfectionist?
Yeah, he's a great producer. I
Hmm.
mean, he's got a great ear for sounds and drum sounds. And when we put, 90125, a combination of uh, Trevor Horn and Trevor Rabin was fantastic in the studio. And quite, there was arguments and stuff like that to get to the point, but usually it all ended up really great at the end.
Yeah. And you guys made it halfway through Big Generator, and then kind of changed plans a little bit as far as the production.
Um, halfway through.
Well, I just mean, did Trevor Horn complete Big Generator? Were you working and writing together?
Well, we recorded some of Big Generator was recorded in Italy, and we went out there, recorded some of the backing tracks, and we finished some in Psalm Studios in London.
Yeah. Now the drums to me, okay, what really attracted me during the '80s is this gigantic drum sound from you, and it's not just the toms, but like, Rhythm of Love. It's like smacking your ears. It's like I want to sound
Yeah.
like that. Was that Were you into that, or was oh, that's a little over the top?
Oh yeah, oh
I'm the
yeah,
loudest lead drummer.
yeah. Well, I wanted to be. Trevor loved drums, and he thought it was a really important factor of the music. So he always mixed it relatively loud in the music. And Rhythm of Love was recorded in, just one take, I believe. In
Wow,
it that was done in Air Studios in London, George Martin studio.
I gotcha. And then just briefly, Union sounded to me as I've been in bands before because I'm a drummer that also plays guitar and writes songs and fronts bands. There's so much talent and so many ideas in the room. I can't imagine how easy that would be to get an album done with with that going on. Is that what you saw going on? There's just too many ideas.
Was
The
that
record turned out great.
Union?
Union, too much talent and too many ideas, or were you happy with it?
Um, well, it wasn't the greatest thing we did, but
Hmm.
you know, I thought it was a good album,
Yeah.
but we've done better than that. Let's put it that way.
Okay. Um, through your whole Yes catalog, there's so many influences and there's so many styles in your playing. I'm gonna try to lean in, and that includes. I mean, there's metal, there's pop, there's Latin, there's jazz, there's Afro-Cuban. Do you, did you collect all of this at a younger age? Did you develop it throughout your career? Did you
Yeah,
gravitate to one style to make you better?
I kind of developed it throughout my career.
Mhm.
I I tend to like a lot of different. Excuse me, I got a throat.
Yeah.
Um, uh, a lot of different ideas because I've got a pretty versatile music ear. I listen to a lot of different influences, even like classical, jazz, and R&B, everything, and I draw from all of those areas to get ideas for how to approach something.
One of my favorite things that you do in your technique that I stole from and still use all the time is your displacement, where you insert different meters into other meters, or you turn the beat around. I love that. Like, hold
Oh,
on, it's a shuffle, and you turn the beat around. And that was one of the
yeah,
first ones where I was like,
yeah,
I
well,
really like this.
it's an old favorite of mine, actually. I've done it quite a few times where, all of a sudden I felt like, why can't I play this backwards and everybody can still play in time? So I tend to turn the rhythm around and play it backwards, but play it backwards like I'm playing it in time.
Yeah,
So,
and you have
um,
to have the bandmates around you who can deal with that. I've been in bands before; they're just like they don't know what they get lost if you jump
well,
off.
I played with Chris Squire for
Yeah,
43 years, and he was
yeah.
very used to the fact to keep the his rhythm to himself and understand that I was playing backwards but still keeping rhythm. So he got very used to that, and he was good at it, and the whole band was good at that.
And not just backwards, but the next time around, you might start it backwards in a different spot, and that was even more interesting to
Yeah, well, that's just me experimenting,
me.
and it happened to work.
Is that your uncle? I read a little clip of something. Your uncle was one of your first influences, and he said you need to play more like an individual drummer. You need to stand out or something like that. And so you weren't just kind of laying back, just playing the beat the whole time. You wanted to kind of. It's not like you were bored, but you wanted to kind of make your mark with some interesting things for the listener.
Believe you me, I was never bored.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
too much to get your teeth into and try and work out at certain times. No, it's and I was being very experimental in music, which I've been all of my life, really. I still am.
Yeah. A little bit about your technique. So I'm really impressed with your speed and your speed without hitting very hard. I mean, you're a monster. You hit hard when you want to, but songs like the intro of Shoot High Am Low when it kind of sounds like you're warming up, and the big fill at Big Generator where it goes slow to fast, and the pattern in Cinema, and the lift me up verse with the ride cymbal. All these very very quick things. Were there certain exercises? I mean, to the normal listener, it sounds like double strokes or buzzes, but I know you're doing singles. Were there certain exercises that really got you to a point to
Well,
improve?
songs like Cinnamon, for instance,
Yeah.
where I just came up with the rhythm. I was playing it at home for quite a few weeks, and then I said, "Well, how the hell can we find some music to go to this rhythm?" And finally, we did with Chris and Trevor and myself, made the whole thing knit together. And by the way, that's the one we got.
You got a Grammy.
Yeah, we got a Grammy for that, and it was quite interesting being in a vocal kind of prog rock band. Got a Grammy for an instrumental.
Yeah. I was curious last time how I started this channel had to do with uh, a life-threatening injury, and I'm trying to relearn the drums, and I am improving. But I asked you if you've had anything in your long career, if you've had any injuries to come back from, so you can get back on tour or play in the studio. And you said you've been really lucky. You haven't had any major things to deal with. Did that just have to do with good health and proper technique?
Yeah, I guess so. Um, I tend to do a bit of everything, really. A bit of jack of all trades.
Yeah.
I like to um, get out there, and
How's your back these
it's
days?
fine.
Yeah. Good. Good.
Yeah, fine right now.
Can't wait to
Uh,
see you play again.
no, that was a couple of years ago, but
Hmm.
it never ever goes away. But it doesn't really affect me drumming. It's more um, when I'm walking around and stuff like that.
Yeah.
A bit stiff sometimes.
A few weeks ago, I was talking to Liberty DeVito of Billy Joel's band for a really long time, and he told me that he deliberately ripped you off in your Instant Karma fill to put in his number one song, It's Still Rock and Roll to Me. He labeled you, you're the guy. So I was wondering with this, that's what I drill into my little kids all the time is shuffle versus straight, shuffle versus straight. And we go measure to measure, shuffle versus straight. So I was wondering, what in new drummers you see today, or when you were a guest at the School of Rock when I was there, what do you see that's lacking, or what do you think is important to put in a drummer's tool belt at such a young age to carry with them into their career if they were to have a drummer career?
Well, that's a good tool to have in your toolbox, as you
Yeah.
say. Um, is try and experiment with playing drum breaks and not that are not in the same meter as the song.
Hmm.
And that was the idea I had at that time. And I've been doing it quite often since then. Just do a drum break that's completely in a different feel to what's going on around you, and then join back into it, but make it seamless so it seems like it never stops
Yeah.
being in time.
One of my other local friends, Ben Smith, the Heart drummer and drummer of everyone else, he was a guest also at the school, and what he noticed was that the kids who go straight into School of Rock or one of these corporate companies rather than private instruction are for some reason are really lacking playing their hi-hat foot to keep time, and we couldn't figure out why that was. They just forget about it, and it's really important.
Oh yeah, totally. And it's supposed to be your timekeeper to keep in time,
Yeah.
and the timekeepers for the rest of the band. So um, to have good technique on the hi-hat, and I always found it very important in what you were doing within the music. Um, funny thing, I mean, I got to reflect on something here. The funny thing is with Charlie Watts never plays all four beats. I don't know if you've noticed that.
Yeah, I definitely do. It sounds like yeah, it's back and forth. Uh,
Where he plays three beats, and then when the snare drum's there, he doesn't play the hi-hat. I
Yeah.
think that's totally unique.
Oh yeah.
And it's really unique to Charlie. Um, but I've gotten used to it now, and it's quite an interest. I can't do it. I've got to play, regular four beats.
Hmm. Would be watching current drummers who might be world famous. You see them on TV or you see them on the internet or whatever. What do you pick out anything? Any deficiencies in technique that you see? You don't have to name names, but like generally, like, wow, that's yeah, I
Yeah,
definitely
I
can tell he's
do.
not skilled.
The
Or
deficiencies I usually see not so much technical, but the fact that people tend to play too much in a lot of songs.
hmm.
And my policy has always been to play what's needed in the music
Yeah,
and not overplay in situations. But I see a lot of overplaying going on in music where playing stuff just for the sake of playing it when it's not needed with what's going on around you.
it's like an ADD thing. It's filling all space at all times. It's overwhelming for the senses. It's not, and I think that's because you're a songwriter too, and you're a multi instrumentalist, and you know what's needed for the song. It's different than when a drummer he's like, well, I'm just a drummer and I'm back here and I want to make my mark. I want to show what I can do. And that's if you're going to be in a band
Yeah.
that's about the song, that's never going to work.
Well, I always, tell people, bide your time, you'll get your chance when it comes.
Yeah. Speaking of technique and young people and things like that, and I'm sure you've heard many amateurs and pros cover your songs. I'm just going to pick one. I'm just going to pick Changes because I used it as an audition song at the other school. What do you see the most common error or misconception of Changes, the way you did it and the way people try to do it?
Um, well, um, that, changes a song I wrote in the middle of the night. It's very natural. I don't count it. I'm, I never really counted it until we'd actually finished recording.
Hmm.
And I realized what it was in, written down on paper. But it was just part of what I felt at the time as far as um, what the music was. And the music developed from the rhythm. So it started from that point.
Yeah.
But I did write the piano part. And
Wow.
so
Hmm.
so that was came along with the drumming part.
Yeah.
Actually, the piano was first. And when I wrote it, I listened to it and I thought this would be a good piece of music. And then I found it very hard to adapt a drum beat to it. And then all of a sudden it just clicked in.
Yeah. Definitely one of my favorite songs of all time. Learning the drums, and just as an aside, just a technical thing, the gate was so heavy on that song. If you wouldn't have indulged me, were you doing going into the second verse? Was that a single flam and then going around, or was it 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 just like this? Or was it
Oh, um, no, it was just single one.
single flam? My whole brain the whole time is. That's just the way
Yeah.
the gate worked
Well,
out.
yeah, I played it like that. Yeah.
And that's to me, that's the Alan White swing too, going in the chorus. Any other drummer would just be like, you know,
Yeah, why not? You
it
know?
made it it made it so much more interesting and intelligent.
Yeah.
And you do that a
Yeah,
lot.
that adds a bit of orchestration to the
Mhm.
song to me.
Just a couple more things. I really appreciate your time. if you wouldn't mind, because I'm not totally schooled on your whole autobiography, but if I could just touch on the Lennon thing briefly. I was just curious if you had a conflict and it was impossible for you to get to Toronto, if he would have just found someone locally, or he just didn't use a drummer. Because it sounded very quick.
Well, no, when he asked me, I mean, I had my own band in London I was playing with, and I was actually cooking in the kitchen. And, we were short of money, and we were playing gigs around London and stuff like any musician in those days. And we had a gig actually that night.
Was this Griffin?
When the gig, yeah, with Griffin.
Yeah.
And the night of the concert in Toronto, we had a gig, and I said to the guys in the band, I said, well, John Lennon just asked me to play a show. And they all said, well, we've got a gig, you can't do that. And I said, what do you mean I can't do that? And I said, no, John Lennon just asked me. And I said, I'll call up and I'll just cancel it, and we'll do it next week. And which I did. And that's how, so that's when I jumped in the limo next morning, and the rest is history.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I wasn't trying to be funny or anything weird right there. I was just curious because the timeline to me sounded very short. So I was just curious.
No, it's a lot of immediate decisions.
Yeah.
Didn't really think about it too much. But my whole life's been like that, Just jump into the fire and see if you can make it work.
Yeah. And the same thing with the George Harrison stuff. He just happened to be in the studio while you're recording with John, right? And then he saw you're playing or heard
Yeah,
what you're
well,
doing.
I had quite a few interesting conversations with George in the studio with Lennon. I mean, we'd sit around and have dinner every night, and we just strike up conversations and stuff. And that's when, he told me he was going to do an album, and then that's when I got the call when he was going to go in there. From Mal Evans, actually. He was the Beatles roadie.
Gotcha.
And I just turned up the studio with my kit, set it up, and left it there for about 3 weeks, actually.
Yeah. And you were so young.
I was only 20 years old. Well, by all things must pass. I might have been 21, I don't know. But I was still young.
Okay. And this style,
I'm still young.
of course you are. You haven't peaked yet. That was one of my later questions. When are you gonna peak, drumming wise and songwriting wise? I was just gonna say this style, the Lennon stuff that you played on and the George Harrison stuff you played on, it is a mellower style. So did you already have these chops, these progressive, mathy, polyrhythm, odd meter stuff? Did you already have the chops in your tool belt, or did you develop that after these sessions? Or because this is what really builds your arsenal to be a studio drummer, is you're playing all these different styles. Were you already prepared and you just took whatever opportunity of style came to you?
Yeah, I just did. Obviously, like I said prior to this, is listen to the music first and see where there was opportunity to expand a little, but mostly I just play what I knew and developed it to the music.
Yeah. It's such a young guy starting out his career. You probably thought you were pro at this time. That probably did wonders for your ego, right? You said you didn't know what was going on. It was happening so fast. You didn't know it would be as popular. Maybe you didn't know it would be as huge as it was, especially Imagine.
Well, I was pretty naive. naive in the music industry then. I was doing a lot of sessions on the side while I was running that band as well. So
Yeah.
this felt like doing another one, but as it happened out, it turned to be quite a big one
Yeah.
over the years.
But you're playing sessions in between. You have your own band. You can play piano. You write music. You go from these and you play with Joe Cocker, and then that's kind of what bridged into Yes, possibly. And then how do you, with that kind of a resume, how do you never not work? You know, I bet you've never not worked as a drummer in your whole career. There's never been any downtime.
No, I always played the drums for some reason. Um, oh, I've always played the drums, and people have always wanted me to play. So um, I've always found an avenue somewhere um, to develop my style and what I was doing.
Yeah, I think I guess I just forgot this when I was talking about the mellower stuff. If you were playing so many sessions that you could play any style you wanted. You could have played stuff that was just as progressive and aggressive, hard hitting, fast back in your early 20s if you wanted to, right? It was just your choice to play for the song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Okay. You were a genius. You were born a genius. You had the talents young. Sometimes it takes a while.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes a while to get influenced by something else that opens up another portal, you know, but you already had
Yeah.
this
Yeah. Exactly.
palette. The biggest jump in your playing, if it be a drummer or a record or a book, a drum book that you read or a teacher.
Um, well, I don't know. It's just been a casual, kind of steady progression, really.
Mm.
No big jump where I woke up one day and said, "Oh, I guess I can do this." No, it's something that I've been working on for years, you
Yeah.
know.
Well,
And
some
it,
drummers around my generation, they'd be like, "Well, once I heard moving pictures, everything changed." Or once I heard big generator, then like this whole other thing opened up.
um, oh,
Or Zeppelin, you know.
well, no, I got more into listening to uh, Lenny White and Jack DeJohnette, and I mean, Weather Report was an album that
Oh yeah.
influenced me a lot. So, and Mahavishnu and Billy Cobham, all that kind of stuff was part of my kind of trying to adopt some of that kind of technique into what I did.
Yeah. And all drummers should play all styles as much as they can. Don't just fall into your rut. Yeah. Like we talked about earlier, I don't believe you think you've reached your drumming peak yet, have you?
Uh, no, I
No.
don't think. I think if you reach your peak, it's like, you know, you don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
Well, I'm still
Still having
open.
fun.
I'm still having fun. I'm open to try anything. So
That's awesome. And everything's on hold right now, but do you see an itinerary coming in for new projects for you coming up this year, next year?
next year, nah. Well, I can't think that far ahead. We've got to finish this year first.
Yeah.
um, we may be touring in summer, late summer. Who knows at the moment with this pandemic, you know. Um, but we'll just have to see how things progress. And when the music business starts getting rolling again, hopefully.
Yeah. Because the guy that I played drums for, Duff, and Guns N' Roses, our band's called Loaded, and I saw a Guns N' Roses itinerary for this year in Australia and New Zealand, and I'm like, I guess so. It might be a bit presumptuous, but they're like announcing itinerary. I don't know how that's going to
Yeah,
go
yeah.
down.
Well, I don't know. I didn't interview for that album Lead and Torn White I did
Yeah.
a couple of days ago on Zoom with Tony Levin
Wow.
and David Torn. And Tony Levin said he was going back on the road in July. So I don't know, maybe that's a good point to aim for.
I hope so. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Well, thank
You
you.
didn't have to do this. You're totally genuine dude, and we're neighbors.
That's fine. No, it was a lot of fun.
Just a
And
funny little end thing to cut you off. I just saw this yesterday. I don't know why I never knew this. Are things okay with you and Zeppelin now? There's still a rivalry. It seems so odd to me. Where did that come from?
that's one thing I would like to resurrect was the thing I did with Jimmy Page and Chris Wyatt.
Yeah.
Um, and I met Jimmy maybe two or 3 years ago. 2 years ago at a function in Seattle, and he brought it up. He said, "I've been listening to those tapes. I'll give you a call and we should finish them sometimes, but I'm still waiting for a call." So that'd be fun.
Just exchange some tracks on the internet. Everyone's doing it.
What's that?
Just exchange some tracks on the internet. Everyone's doing it these days. Have them send you some tracks.
Oh, yeah, well, we could do it that way, but hopefully I can fly to England, and Jimmy's got a really pretty good studio in his house, so.
Yeah. Hey, my friend, thank you again. Thanks for everything you've done for me and helping out with my career, and I really appreciate your patience.
All right, man. Thanks very much.
See you around the neighborhood.
All right, bye-bye.